Hello, welcome to the Rollingjays Podcast, episode 8, with your host Jordan. On today's episode, it's going to be a bit differently. We have no Gabe. He's busy at the moment, but had to keep the show going. On today's episode, I wanted to bring up a few topics on music, and as well as some misinformation about marijuana. So starting off, it's only the beginning of the year, right? The beginning of 2022. There's still many artists to drop. As in the last episode, me and Gabe talked about the people that we wanted to hear drop this year. So far, in February, 2 Chainz dropped, it was a pretty good album. I listened to it. I'm not a big 2 Chainz fan, but I know he did a lot for the industry, so it was a good album to hear. Yo Gotti, I didn't hear the album, but Young Dolph is better. Also, I got another drop from Wiz Khalifa and Juicy J. So originally Wiz Khalifa already released an album this year. Not this year, sorry. It was last year. It's called Wiz Got Wings. It was more like a collab album with producers. It was a really good album. I really enjoy it. I know some people don't enjoy Wiz Khalifa as they did in the old days, but if you're a true stoner and like to smoke and be chilled out, vibe out, I definitely recommend Wiz Khalifa's music. It's definitely a chill vibe when smoking. But the album Wiz Got Wings was a pretty good album. It came out last year, December 10th, 2021. The album he dropped with Juicy J, another collab album, Stoner's Night, was a really good album. I listened to the whole thing multiple times. It really felt like a Juicy J album the more you listen to it because of the production, and it has that early 2000s sound. But also Wiz does carry his own throughout the album. Maybe there's like one song on here that's maybe like not as good, but other than that, the whole album was really good. Features on it, other than it was Big 30 was featured on it, which was a surprise to me. A Memphis rapper, same label that's in the same group. I think it's label 1700. It's Gucci Mane's label. It's actually called the 1017 label. But yeah, Big 30 is part of the label. Signed with Gucci Mane, Pusha T, and a lot more Memphis rappers. So the fact that he was on the album was a big surprise. Other than that, that was a good album. Another album that dropped was surprisingly Snoop Dogg. Now Snoop Dogg released an album. I didn't hear it, but I did hear the one song, the first song, and it went hard. It gave an old school West Coast vibe, which for me, I really enjoy. I grew up listening to West Coast music because of my father. My dad really enjoyed the West Coast sound, like Snoop, MWA, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, even like some Hispanic rappers. So I think that's why I really enjoy listening to West Coast music because of my father back in the day growing up. So with Snoop Dogg's album, the first song I heard was a really good song. Like I said, a throwback sound. So I'm guessing with the whole album, it's like a throwback, but also keeping up with today's music. Because you got features in here like The Game, The Baby, Wiz Khalifa, and then those are the only people that I know that are in the music industry. Well, I didn't say music industry right now, but I guess people who are popping right now. Because obviously he got like the old school people, like he got Nas and he got some other people in here, Nate Dogg. But yeah, so I feel like this album, yeah, it is meant for the older generation. But if you're an individual who really enjoys listening to hip-hop and like the art of hip-hop and the history of it, then you guys should definitely check out Snoop Dogg's album. It's pretty cool that recent news, Snoop Dogg has actually acquired Death Row Records, so now he is the CEO of Death Row Records. So right now Snoop has been killing it, being at his age and his time. It's amazing, you know. He is a true legend right there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, today is February 23rd, 2022, and I was gonna record this episode yesterday, but I'm happy I didn't, because last night on stemplayer.com, Kanye West, had a live listening party for Donda 2. Now, I joined in kind of late. I missed maybe 2 songs. I missed a BB Keem song, and when I jumped in, I was in the middle of the Jack Harlow song he had with him. Other than that, after that, all the new songs that he was playing were hard. The Future song, I need that song. That song was everything I expected. The instrumental, everything is the bars, even Kanye's part went hard. So I'm really excited about Donda 2. The Donda 2 listening party was a pretty entertaining thing to see. You know Kanye, he always brings out some new stuff. He always has some interesting ass shows. But clearly, I don't think that album was done because I only heard about 5 or 6 songs. I don't think it's gonna be that long. So he is working on the album still. Other than that, from what I saw the show yesterday, I guess the engineers were having technical problems because mics were getting cut in and out. At first, I thought it was me. I thought these rappers weren't really didn't even know their lyrics. That's why I thought, I'm like, damn, these people don't know their lyrics. But it was really the mics cutting them in and out. So I mean, it got to the point where Kanye got pissed off and he threw the mic in the middle of his verse because it wasn't working. So yeah, Donda 2 is definitely an anticipated album for me this year. Well, I feel like any Kanye album, any anticipated album, but definitely excited to see what Kanye is gonna bring out this year. And he's been going off, you know. He's been having his own little personal issues, but that does not stop him from releasing new music. And I appreciate that, you know, his hard work and dedication to the art. But a feature that I was actually taken off guard to hear in the album was X's feature on Kanye's Donda 2. I didn't know that they still have X's music. I knew he has some songs unfinished, but I thought the label already released all of them. So it was pretty nice to hear him on the album. I liked his verse. Kanye also really delivered on the song. Like I said, the whole project, Donda 2, excited. Definitely might be album of 2022. Kanye really going for the album of the year back to back. Now, this next topic is, I would say, a common misconception about health risks on marijuana. Things that I always hear everyday people be worried about with long-term or even short-term use of marijuana. I still hear people compare the long-term use to cigarettes, like how cigarette smokers are more common than marijuana smokers to develop lung disease. Sure, any amount of smoke into your lungs is bad, but I really do believe that weed is definitely a safer alternative than cigarettes. Recent studies even say that marijuana has more benefits on your lungs than cigarettes do even. If you look around on the internet, looking at different types of research, you'll see that people both seeing results in benefits and negative effects. For example, like in this article right here, they did a long-term study on cardiovascular disease on developing young adults, tested lung function of more than 5,000 people ages 18 to 30. Some were cigarette smokers and some were marijuana smokers, and some used both. The study found that those who only smoked cigarettes or cigarettes and marijuana saw their lung function dropped over 2 decades. Meanwhile, cannabis-only smokers saw their lung function improve slightly over time. It is important to know that most cannabis users in the study were light smokers, that the average study subject lit up 2 to 3 times a month. However, the researchers also did not see evidence of breathing problems in more frequent cannabis smokers either. The study did not account for other factors that might contribute to improved lung function, such as increased exercise. So basically, if you're someone who only smokes weed, your lungs won't be as bad as someone who either smokes cigarettes and weed or just cigarettes. In the article it says that they only did test the people who are light smokers, so chronic smokers as myself still are in the question. Me being a person that smoked for about almost 10 years now, I actually haven't really felt any lung problems, I should say. I always tell people around me that if I didn't smoke weed and I smoked cigarettes, I feel like I would have some shitty ass breathing, probably some rough nights. It's just a disgusting habit. So that's why I'm happy that at least I smoke weed, because I still have the same stamina. I still have no problem with breathing. If I go out, exercise, I'm able to catch up with others. Like, I haven't really seen any long-term effects on myself. Maybe I forget a couple things, but obviously that's probably because I'm high most of the time, so that probably explains it. But other than that, I haven't really experienced any long-term effects myself. I'm sure it's, I'm still the beginning stages, still young. Who knows? Probably when I'm older, I'll probably start feeling the effects. But then again, as we see people like Snoop Dogg, Willie Nelson, people getting older and older, chronic users, they're still looking healthy and fine with no issue, really. I mean, how many times have you heard, Snoop Dogg has lung issues, like he can't, never really. Snoop Dogg's still young, still looks young, still smokes weed every day. I forgot how much he said that he smokes, but I know it's a ridiculous amount, and that just shows that, everybody's different. Drugs in any form of way works on the body differently for everybody. But also, gotta keep in mind that if you're smoking the right weed, it's organically from the ground. So I'm gonna sound like the cliche stoner, but the plant was put on this earth for a reason. Honestly, I feel like people who disposables, electric vapes, have a higher risk of worse lung problems than cigarette smokers. If you really think about it, you've probably seen all of the anti-electric cigarette commercials promoting, young teens not to use. But even though they look like silly commercials, low-key, some of them kind of sound pretty concerning and true. I've heard some pretty bad things from people who've used disposables. I've known actually someone myself who used them almost I think he gets a new one every 2 days or so. At one point he got to the point where he had to use 2 at once. So I seen a really bad disposable addict. And the thing with him is that I remember one day we were in the car and he asked me, he was like, "You've been smoking for a long time. Have you ever just woken up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom and just spit a whole bunch?" And I'm like, "No." And he was telling me that one night he woke up and that he went to the bathroom and that he was coughing an excessive amount, and that a whole bunch of, I don't know, it's weird to explain, but a lot of saliva came out and it wasn't right. But that's what's concerning. And the fact that he told me this and that he thought I went through the same thing just because I smoke weed every day is crazy. I was hoping after he experienced that himself, he would calm down. At that point, this is like a year ago too, he did not calm down. But now, in this present time, my friend has calmed down with disposables, doing better. But after hearing that just made me think of electric cigarettes in a whole different way. I even have a story of myself. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I've never used an electric cigarette. I actually own one, but see, for me, nicotine works differently, because for me, nicotine, if I hit it 2 times, I start getting a headache, sort of like a nausea feeling, and that's why I really don't like using them. But recently I realized when I'm stressed or when I can't roll up and smoke weed and I just want to smoke something, I find myself wanting to hit a disposable. So I bought one for work, in case I needed it. But like I said, I rarely use it. A disposable for me will last me a month. I do get the nicotine head rush, so I do understand why it's appealing to a lot of people, but I only want the feeling not even that often, so that's why I have it. But also, my one bad experience I've had with electric cigarettes was back in the day. There was a time in my life where I couldn't smoke weed for I think about a year and 8 months, and I was finding ways to cope with me not being able to smoke. So I went to everything to going back into gaming OD. I bought a Game Boy. I bought retro games, try to keep myself occupied. Obviously, that helped a bit, but I still wanted the feeling of smoke. So around the time, it was when like e-cigarettes were having a bad rep. New York State was taking out like anything that was flavored. I think Juul started taking out their mint pods and mango pods. So someone put me on to a fuse, and I bought the fuse. I used it for a good amount of time. But one thing that I would never forget is there was times when I had the fuse and it was hard for me to breathe at night. And that was really concerning because it was like I've never had this feeling before when I was able to smoke weed every day. Like I was smoking weed, I think I was smoking weed for 4 years, and I was smoking weed every day. At this point, I was smoking weed every day for 2 years. So I was still pretty experienced, but I've never had this feeling. And the fact that I stopped smoking for a year and 8 months and started using this e-cigarette, and I started getting this feeling that I can't breathe at night, and really awful, like sweating at night, it just made me not want to use that anymore. And that's what deterred me away from e-cigarettes, because I realized you never really know what you're inhaling in those electric cigarettes, especially now with everything being all new. Yes, research is being done every day and things are changing every day, but until someone really knows how bad they are, I mean, I really don't think they're a good idea for anybody to take. Well, I shouldn't say take, I should say more like smoke. Because, I mean, listen, back in the day, right, when cigarettes just became a thing, there was a lot of commercials going around promoting cigarettes, even to young adults, like teens. And they got to the point where even they were putting doctors in commercials recommending to smoke cigarettes. Come to find out, through years of research, that was a really harmful thing towards your lungs, developing lung cancer, other lung infections, and even other long-term effects on your body. So yeah, I mean, be wary, at least they all have labels. You buy a disposal, you buy any pack of cigarettes, even if you buy legal marijuana, all of them have labels warning you about your lungs being affected. So I mean, at least so that's what I'm trying to say, like, to the people that smoke disposables. I always try to tell them, like, there'll be people who smoke disposables and smoke weed, and that gets me so confused, because I'm like, isn't weed just enough? But for some people it's not. And me being a person who's not really addicted to nicotine, I guess I couldn't really understand the feeling of it being hard to quit nicotine. Because I mean, people always ask me if I'm able to just one day stop smoking weed, and truthfully, I feel like 2 days easy. I feel like after that, that's when I would want it again. But I mean, I did it for a year and 8 months. I had to, but I did it. So I mean, it's hard, but it's not impossible to stop. Nor do I want to stop. So that's also why I haven't really stopped. Maybe slowed down, but that's only because I'm like, I'll be getting up sometimes and I'm like, damn, I don't really want to smoke. And I'll go through mainly most of my day without smoking until I'm like, okay, let me smoke now. And if you're really worried about smoke in your lungs and you want to keep consuming cannabis, there's always a lot of options other than smoking, rolling up. There's edibles. I hear even the vaporizers are a good thing. So don't let that scare you away from enjoying yourself. I feel like at least everybody should try weed at least one time in their life, because I mean, who knows, you might like it, maybe it's not for you, maybe it is, maybe it might change your life. But I feel like someone can't really talk about weed without them experience it for the first time. I hope you guys enjoyed this short podcast episode. It's a bit differently. I might start doing it like this. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. See you guys in the next episode.